Very special pleasure to introduce our speaker for today. He's someone that I have come to know and truly admire. And I'm also, I consider him my third son, you know. So anyway, uh, and I'm gonna call him Pastor Jason. His real name is Dr. Thompson, Dr. Jason Thompson, but he is such a dear friend and a wonderful person that I'm gonna be calling him Pastor Jason because that's all I can call you. Anyway, so Pastor Jason could have any number of careers. He could have a career in music. He could have a career in administration. He could have a career probably as a politician because he's one of the best speakers I've ever heard. And yeah, he's shaking his head, but okay. All right. But a little bit about his background. He graduated with a PhD from Northwestern University. He spent 20 years. He doesn't look like it, but he spent 20 years in the profession as a public school music teacher, university professor, and administrator. Thank you. Yes. We do appreciate people who've been involved in these wonderful areas. And he served as the interim director of music education at NYU Steinhardt School of Education. So impressive. And then he was a Arizona State University Herberger School of Design and Arts before he came to Sacramento. He's also written a book, and when I'm no longer president of the Renaissance Society, I'm going to read it, okay? Yeah, it's called If Colors Could Be Heard, They'd Paint Wondrous Tunes. And it's really about, or a tribute to, those who see their own stories as an intimate and essential part of music education. So the other thing that I'd like to mention about, I'm calling him Pastor Jason, is that he was immediately tapped by President Luke Wood to be a member of the Black Honors College. Luke Wood knows what he's about when he tapped you for that. And Pastor Jason came to Sacramento, in 2022? And he became the pastor at the oldest African-American church west of the Mississippi. It was founded in 1850. And Pastor has taken over that church. He's transformed it. He has made it into a wonderful, welcoming place. He was the winner of and St. Andrews were the winners of our Diversity and Inclusion Award last year at this time, just a year ago. We honored Pastor Jason and St. Andrews because they opened their door to Renaissance. We were putting on a summer program, and it was about diversity and music and arts and all of that. And he allowed the Renaissance members to come in and absolutely pack the sanctuary and gave us the most memorable, incredible gospel music performance. So it was really, really very special. And he has just done marvelous things with the church. And so we're just honored to have you here today, Pastor Jason. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Yeah, good afternoon. And certainly thank you to the Renaissance Society for the invitation to come today and to talk, and certainly to my dear friend, Mama Deborah, and very excited to have another Mama. I take that honor certainly not to heart, not lightly, I mean. So certainly grateful to be, can you hear me? Certainly grateful to be here with you. I just thought about this when I was on faculty at Arizona State University. I was a part of their OSHER, lifelong learning community, which is very similar to the Renaissance Society. I got a chance to do more participatory musical things and befriended a guy who took the class like 3 times, and he was a boxer. And one of his gifts to me was his old boxing shoes. And I have these pair of boxing, I'm gonna wear them one day, but it's just beautiful to be here with you. Not only because I appreciate education, it's just what's been my lifeline, but also I think about my mom and my dad, who Deborah knows my dad just passed, 81 years old, passed in February. And I always think about these moments that my dad would be listening from afar, supporting his son, supporting music. I laugh though, because my dad did not want me to be a music teacher at all. No, that was like, You're not going to make money. You got to take care of your family, that kind of 81-year-old logic at the time. But over time, to watch the ways that he supported the work that I was doing just means so much to me. So talking with you today feels as if it is a continuation of what my dad started, to continue to pass on to each generation the love of community, the love of music, the love of just being at one. So thank you so much for allowing me to be here. I'm also apologizing because my voice, this is the best I have right now. I sound like I probably smoke a pack of cigarettes or something, right? But I'm very, very grateful to talk with you today. I was just sharing that I feel like my talk might be a bit boring than it should be. So I'll find a way to hopefully bring some engagement to it as well. So I'm going to go with my script, and I'm going to show a couple of things as well, and then take some questions at the end. But again, thank you for allowing me to be a part of this work. Yes, thank you. So I'm going to start off, okay, just reading a couple things. I deeply believe that equity and inclusion and belonging, of course, that's been all over the news, right, are not separate from, but fundamental to intellectual excellence, even artistic excellence. This means that creating truly amazing and excellent music and art and fostering profound growth requires actively cultivating spaces, just like this one, where everybody feels valued, where they feel respected, where everyone feels as if they have these equitable opportunities to contribute to their unique perspectives and talents. So for 2 decades, I know I don't look this age, I'll be turning 48 this year. I'm like, where did that time go, right? But for 2 decades, this principle has guided the work that I do with young people. It's been a personal commitment, it's been a professional commitment to ensure that the resources, the opportunities that are made available to to the select few are made available to everybody, that everybody gets a chance to tell the world's story, right? And to contribute to it. So I want to talk about music education and how I have gone through my own path of being a music student. And can I just say, pause for one moment, that today the lady who I attribute to being the person that got me into my music career, Janice Darty, was funeralized today. So it's just interesting how all of these things are weaving together. And I know she is somewhere in heaven smiling down and just being a part of this. I feel her presence so much in the room. Janice Darty. I always like to speak people's names because of their importance. And so I want to talk about how my work over 20 years in the school districts and the profession center around diversity work. And I'm calling it diversity work, particularly the concept of belonging. This feeling of being connected to a group. I was watching you when you came in and how you spoke to each other and how there seems to be people who are gravitating to, like, let's sit together, right? There's a feeling of belonging in this room. I think that's wonderful. The feeling of connectedness to a group, a feeling of being a part of a larger community. I believe music does that. Music, often thought to foster belonging, prompts the question, if being involved in music inherently creates community. And I think about that because so much of what I did was with choirs, with people coming together to sing. And if participating in music through an ensemble in some ways fosters community. So I want to talk about that. I thought about this because so many of my own colleagues, maybe some of you, think about the good old days, right, of music and how music holds some genuine merit at certain time periods that may not be the same right now, right? I imagine that maybe if you have grandchildren or nieces and nephews, that their music seems strange, seems weird sometimes. I always urge everyone to caution against a purely nostalgic view, right? What we would call a Camelot memory. That term may be very familiar to some of you. If you're unfamiliar, Camelot is the legendary court of King Arthur, a place synonymous with romance and optimism. In more recent memory, it's linked to President John F. Kennedy's presidency. Does anybody remember this, right? It was popularized by Jacqueline Kennedy, a description of the White House and her time in the White House, where she calls it, quote, one brief shining moment known as Camelot, end quote. And while the phrase evokes a sense of artistic and intellectual flourishing, focusing solely on a Camelot memory risks overlooking the potential for belonging that can occur within institutions, within groups like this, especially for learners or participants who may be very different than we are. So I want to take an informal poll. Are you ready? I was going to bring your phones out and, but that always trips me up, so I didn't even want to do it. But before we get into how individual stories shape our understandings, our identities, let's have a little bit of fun with a quick, informal, maybe entirely subjective music poll. Yep. Here we are. So just get us thinking about how our personal histories, how our experiences, our background, our heritages, our histories influence what resonates with us. I want to start out with maybe the 1960s and I could go back farther, but let's just start with the 1960s. And your super job is just to raise your hand on which genre, which decade, which era is your favorite. And if you have more than one, you get a chance to vote more than one time. I love this. All right, here we go. What about the 1960s, right? The era of the Beatles, Motown, Bob Dylan. Did they have the best music? Look around. I want you to see okay. Oh, wow. What about the 1970s with Stevie Wonder, Fleetwood Mac, disco, the early hip hop, right? Okay, hands down. What about the 1980s, right? I was born in 1977, but I grew up in the 1980s listening to people like Michael Jackson, Madonna, Prince, well, the artist formerly known as Prince, right? Maybe even a new wave that reigned supreme during that era. What about the 1990s? You remember Nirvana? Oh, there's one back there, yeah. Even your facial expression, though, you're like, we need to talk afterwards about what that meant. Mariah Carey, right? The golden age of hip hop, even grunge. Was that the peak of music for some people? What about the 2000s, right? Where we saw artists like Beyonce and Eminem. Very few hands now for some reason. Even indie rock, punk rock. And then finally, maybe I'll just stop here with like 2010s where there's Adele. I got a chance the other month to go to the candlelight concerts at the California State Railroad Museum, and they were playing Adele. I actually went to see Whitney Houston a couple weeks ago, and I'm telling you, it was packed. And I'm still kind of thinking that it's hard to hear Whitney Houston music without Whitney Houston singing it, right? Yeah. So, and I could have kept going on. Adele, or Kendrick Lamar, who was very popular with the NFL games. Taylor Swift, electronic dance music, and so there's one right there, right? I love it. So I say this because there's a fascinating mix of favorites. Yes. It's clear that we have a wonderful range, a diverse range of musical loves in the room. And the artists, the songs that resonate with us often are tied to how we were raised, what we listened to, our personal journeys, maybe even the communities of musical practices that we are a part of. This very specific connection to music really demonstrates how individual experiences shape our perspectives. I'm going to say that again. Individual experiences shape our perspectives. And as we'll discover, a sense of identity, a sense of belonging. I wrote a book with some colleagues, and it's going to be published, coming out in October. You can look it up. It's called If Colors Could Be Heard, They Paint Most Wondrous Tunes, right? And it really is looking at the ways in which music happens, not necessarily always in formal music settings like K through 12, where I was a student and we were in general music. Then we either went to band or orchestra or choir, right? But the ways that music might happen in a church or in the garage, like a garage band, right? Like these informal practices. And we were looking at how beautifully this paints. And so I have to read my opening paragraph to you because it demonstrates what I just said about my own love of music that's based in my own heritage. But there's a catch. I want you to see where every good story takes a little turn. You ready? All right, here we go. The Methodist church of my childhood in our family's small North Carolina town served a delicious buffet, not of food, but of music. Traditional hymns mingled with soul-stirring spirituals and gospel tunes that poured out of the diaphragms of a robust choir of melanated singers. Choirs, 10, sometimes dozens, and often the entire congregation would raise their voices in unison, shaking the rafters and stirring my soul. This diverse musical offering catered to every taste, from my grandmother Mary's love of hymns, to my pop's fondness for men's quartet singing, to my own passion for gospel music. The church wasn't the only place where my musical appetite was nurtured. My high school choral director curated a rich repertoire that spanned Western classical music, spirituals and gospel, popular music tunes, and musical theater. By the time I graduated, I experienced an astonishing breadth of cross-cultural musical encounters. I began envisioning myself not just as a pianist or a singer, but as a potential composer, an arranger, and most definitely a future educator. Studying music at the collegiate level, however, proved to be a contrast to this vibrant musical upbringing. In the late 1990s, I quickly learned that some types of music and ways of being musical were deemed unworthy of serious study. Despite promises of diversity and inclusion, many institutions engage in a form of gatekeeping, drawing invisible boundaries around what music is considered legitimate in the curriculum to the exclusion of what is not. And I didn't realize that I had quoted Miss Doherty in that, my high school teacher. Look, this is just a moment of nostalgia for me. But so as you see, right, that there's the tension that's inherent in the work of diversity in music education, where on one hand, there is music, there are musics, I should say, that we do think is important, so important that we study it, that we put it into our curriculums. Well, there's also music where we might put at the fringes, at the margins, and we might say, oh, just have some fun, right? So this brings me to a critical point that just as our individual backgrounds influence our musical tastes and how we connect with music and art, so do they shape our experiences within institutions, including music institutions, academic institutions, perhaps even the Renaissance Society, right? But aren't the arts imitations of life? Or doesn't art imitate life? They can inadvertently teach us to minimize ourselves, to conform to others' standards or rules, or sometimes prioritizing the institution itself over one's individual needs. And this brings us to the critical point, like words, and I'm going to just write some of these on the board though. Just this words that we see in the news, words like diversity or inclusion, right? All of these buzzwords. I taught one time at a place that they used the word Jedi. Have you seen that too? So they put justice in it. So it's justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion. It sounds good, right? Jedi, right? May the force be with you on, I think, Monday. Is that coming up, I think, right? Yes. May the 4th is coming up, yeah. She like to change my sermon for Sunday, but yeah. Stewart, 2017, calls these languages of appeasement. Languages of appeasement because we add them to our curriculum, because we add these kind of words to a program or a roster of activities for the year, people get appeased. Yes, we do diversity because there it is right there on May the 4th, right? And so she talks about this because she says that they can be integrated into institutional narratives to project an image of progress, right? But do institutions truly embody these values? And that's the question that I've been asking myself throughout my career. For over 2 decades, I've examined the alignment between, I'm going to throw out a couple more words, and forgive me. I know this is not as pretty as a pretty PowerPoint slide, but I've been in the bed, so. I always talk about espouse the values enacted practices. So these are values, right? We have values that we espouse as important, that we believe in diversity, we believe in equity, we believe in whatever that might be. But where did I go? Yeah. This espouse values and enacted practices of inclusion and belonging. But what we see is that sometimes there's a significant gap between what institutions say they believe and what they actually do. Sarah Ahmed, right, it gets bigger. Feminist scholar Sarah Ahmed, who I really love her work, she talks about how there's a difference between what institutions say they believe and what they do. I think that's kind of like a play on words there, right? But so we see that all the time. I was in Chicago teaching a course once and went to the MoMA. I think it was the MoMA. What was it? The modern, was it MoMA? Was it the contemporary? I can't remember which one I was at. But there was an event, an art exhibit by Amanda Williams. She used to be an architect who now is an artist. I think that's kind of cool. She talked about how what we value is reflected in what each of us chooses to notice, to pay attention to care for, to sustain, right? And so I have been in at this point in my life trying to sustain this, and you probably don't know this, Deborah, but this is why I love that I'm at St. Andrews. It's because as musical styles change, and I have no problems with them changing, Miss Dora, but what we learn is that I'm trying to still hold on to my grandmother's hymns, trying to hold on to what my father loved, even though at the time I did not like it at all right? And so how do I capture that? How do I sustain it? And so that's because of a value system. I can say I believe it, but when it comes down to what I actually do, is that true? And so this is why I use the word design, that we are all products of design. We are designers, right? I think about what I do with students every day as a way to come to the design table together. Guess what it takes to be designers? All kinds of visionaries and musicians and artists who come from different places and spaces to the design table together to make something. Wow. Think about what that means, that we are a product of design, and what we create, right, requires all of us to be at the design table. I want to throw out two more words. I'm just going to use a different pen here, so forgive me for all of this. Priorities and patterns. Here's where my mama, Carolyn Jean Evans Thompson, comes out, because my mother realized that it didn't matter what I said. She was looking at my patterns. And the older I get, the smarter my mama becomes. Because what I learned is that she knew that despite me saying, oh, mama, if you just buy me this, I promise you I won't ask for anything else, that wasn't true, because my patterns were going to demonstrate that I was going to ask for something even more. And so what she was trying to, what I'm learning is to look at patterns, right? But I'm also at the same time looking at disruptions of patterns. What happens when we allow students to bring their musical appetites and identities to the classroom? And I don't mean just their ethnic identities, but their musical tastes and preferences, and bring it not as a good show and tell for Friday. What happens if it becomes part of our curriculum and part of what we do? What do we learn from each other when we talk about protest songs together? What do we learn by sharing that? What do we learn when we get up and share each other's musical cultures? How rich can we be, right? And so this is what I mean by design, a designer of musical practice, right? Do I mean degree requirements? Because of course, many of you who've been in school districts and school systems, or had to put together a whole year of Renaissance learning, right? Is that when you make choices, inadvertently, you're going to have to leave something out because of time or because of expertise, right? So do we mean degree requirements? Do we mean curriculum? For my doctoral students, the completion of a degree was a RITE of passage, right? But it also is a WRITE of passage, right? And so we go through these things that we say, now you are this, right? Jay-Z, do you know that name? Jay-Z, he's married to Beyonce, in case you don't know. There's a great book of his in 2010 that highlighted how sampling, which is, or sampling allowed him to he and his friends to recreate their world. drawing on inspiration from past musical records to form their own musical histories and identities. I want you to hear this quote because I think it's so powerful. Am I doing something wrong here? I feel like I'm making noises. Okay. Yeah, help me, move me around. Yeah. This.
The mic isn't on, is it?
Should I use this one? Oh, okay. I don't think it's on though. Yeah.
I think there's something about right in that.
Okay, I'll try to.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is what Jay-Z says. He says, we were kids without fathers. So we found our fathers on wax. And by wax, he means music records that were originally wax cylinders. We found our fathers on wax and on the streets and in history. And in a way, that was a gift. We got to pick and choose the ancestors who would inspire the world we were going to make for ourselves. Our fathers were gone, usually because they just bounced. But we took their old records and used them to build something fresh. Oh, I just love that. What does it mean to build something fresh? Here I was when I was back home. I don't know if you ever had to be the estate, the executive for your family's estate. Help me. It's a true honor. But I don't know if you've had to do this where going back in time almost is a beautiful journey. Let me talk in a different way. Let me say it this way. Have you ever had a junk drawer? I love it. I sit on the floor because I'm going to clean it out and be done in an hour. And then I'm usually like halfway done and I find stuff and I go back through memory lane. I think that's what Jay-Z is saying, that even though he didn't know his father, they got a chance to understand history through the music. All right, here's a task for you. Ready? Because we're going to build something fresh. Build something fresh. I want you to share with the person beside you, one musical experience that you've had. Maybe it's your favorite. I remember when we were at Woodstock, or I remember when we did this, or just last week I sang the Star Spangled Banner, right? Or at church on Easter, I did whatever. Share that. And then I want you to give yourselves an artist name. Oh. Madonna's already taken. But if you had to choose one, don't overthink. If you're like me, I'm going like, oh my God, I can't think of anything, right? Just for fun and to give me a chance to get some water too, right? Share a musical experience of you, because it helps the person beside you understand your own musical histories. And then just to be something fresh, what would your musical artist name be? If we said, ladies and gentlemen, coming to the stage, Pixie, right? Does that make sense? All right, so just talk to each other real quick, maybe about 1 minute. Yeah.
I don't think it's you. I think it's. It's always ready. I will. This it's one of those mic. Every time I think you're one step to the left. Yeah. I want your artist. Madonna. Make some money. That's real.
I see my time is it might be easier. Yeah. All right. Am I back on? Okay. It wouldn't be a great moment unless I took the best names now, right? Anybody want to share their name, their fresh name? Uh-oh. Or share the person beside you because they're so modest that you're like, this is too good to hold out. Yes. Picture Ponent. Oh, Picture Poet. That works too, right? Yeah, awesome. Yes. Fantasy Flyer. Ooh. Put these on t-shirts. I tell you, make some money for Renaissance. Yes. Yes, ma'am. Tony Bennett. Okay. I love that. Yes.
McRae.
Gordon McRae. Ooh. Look at these names. Go ahead. Ray Charles. There we go. Good stuff. Yes. Okay. Great Bob Dylan. Yes, I love this. Did I see one right here? Did I miss something? Okay. Oh, that's Bob Dylan has two names. What? Yes. Miles Davis. Yeah. There's a lady at our church that's in a particular facility, and I love that they use these names on the door. So when I go back, I'm like, who's who, right? Yes.
Natalie Cole.
Natalie Cole. I love it. Yes.
Lou Rawls.
Lou Rawls. Yeah. Nobody said Jason Thompson. I don't know why, but okay. I've got more work to do. More work to do. So let me, oh yes, ma'am. I'm sorry. Luther Vandross. What a great song. What's the other singer? When I was a little kid, I used to get Luther Vandross. And what's the other guy that sounds just like him? No, is it Teddy Pendergrass? And I used to get them mixed up because their voices sounded so similar, right? Like, somebody said Marvin Gaye? Yeah.
But yeah,
Okay, what is it?
when that I played saxophone, so my name is Saxy.
Oh, I'm not going to touch that. I love it. So this idea is one that is close to me. This idea of creating, going back to the past to then sample. If you ever sampled, you take a little piece of something old and use it in something larger, right? To create something fresh is the difference for me between recreation. And I hope you can maybe use this in your own cookbooks, right? To recreate something versus, see the difference in the word here? Recreation. I say that because so much of our students' musical identities can be looked upon by those who are in charge as just mere recreation, not as a way to start something fresh, not as a way to recreate something that was not there before, not as a way to show priorities, not as a way to show that our espoused values match what we say we actually do. So I've been looking for more ways to recreate, to draw on what was before as a way to then do something new. I want to leave you with two ways that I do this. One of the ways is, well, let me say, let's use it, this organizing tool that I'll just talk about old designs and then new patterns. So we can see new designs, new patterns in old designs, right? There's a little bit of patchwork there, quilt work, if you ever had to do that. One of the ways is the difference between stories and counter stories. Have you heard that term before? Counter stories. Everybody loves a good story, don't they? Yeah, stories create their own bonds. Stories represent cohesion. I mean, even as you were talking, there are bonds that are being created off the stories. Stories represent shared understandings, meanings. Stories also enliven our understanding of complex issues. They introduce new perspectives into worldview. It's why on Sunday in a sermon, I may tell a story because people may not get the message, but they can get the story, right? So we love to tell stories, and I want to read you a couple stories about music education that were published in our profession as a way to then talk about counter stories. Megan from Iowa says, music education has been a life-changing experience for my son. He had been expelled from school and was following a self-destructive path until the marching band welcomed him and gave him something to be a part of. Every child should be afforded that opportunity. Yeah. Maria in Maryland says, singing in the choir at school helped me learn English when I came back to the country as a child after living abroad. Singing a solo at the school concert was the first thing I did that got me recognition from my peers and led to many friendships. David from Maryland says, my youngest son, I don't know why I just changed my voice there, but my youngest son has severe attention problems. Learning to play the saxophone and playing in the school band and jazz band has helped to teach him how to focus and to become more mentally disciplined. After taking medicine for years, he is now ready to stop taking ADHD medicine and stand on his own. I credit music instruction in elementary and middle school substantially for helping him do this. Carrie from Illinois. Nobody from California. I don't know what that means. I have been a music teacher for 26 years and have spent the last 17 years in public school. I have seen countless examples of students who have fallen through the cracks academically, but had musical talent that, when nurtured, both improved their grades, but also did wonders for their self-esteem. Here's one more. Mary from Nevada. You know it's pronounced Nevada? I used to say Nevada because I thought it was beautiful, but somebody from Nevada, the state of Nevada, said it's pronounced Nevada. I'm not going to argue with them, but it doesn't come out Nevada. So Mary from Nevada says, music's actually saved my life when I was in high school. I lived with an abusive alcoholic father. And then had it not been for all of my musical activities to keep me at school and involved, I would have fallen even deeper into drug abuse and, in all likelihood, have died from an overdose or a suicide attempt. Music was the only positive thing in my life for the 4 years of high school, and it kept me coming to school. Wow. Ooh, I love it, right? I love it. I love how singing together can really do some really incredible things. But when we think about stories, there's always equal counter stories, counter realities. These stories, we learn this from feminist scholars. We learn this from womanist scholars, that the stories of women may differ from the stories of men, or the stories from Black women may differ from the stories of other races, or the stories of people from North Carolina are different than people from stories from Nevada, right? Uh-oh, I hope I didn't break it. I just don't want to pay for it. That's why I'm saying. I'm telling the truth. Everything is so expensive now. Goodness. Oof. I mean, I went to get some eggs the other day, and I'm glad I can say eggs, because I tell you. So, not to bore you, but I'm going to just run through a couple of these just so you understand what this is. Like, Bhattacharya suggests that we ought to hold multiple ways or find ways to recognize and uphold multiple forms of knowledge, that knowledge isn't just held by one group, right? This is what I love about the university and working at a university, is because I'm around people who think differently than I am, people who are scientists and people who are artists and people who are underwater basket weavers. I'm just making up something there, right? And so how do we hold this notion that there are counter realities, there are multiple forms of knowledge? Counter storying provides stories of those people whose experiences are not always told. I wish I could have asked my grandmother Mary that I talked about. I wish I would have asked her more stories. I just didn't think to do that because I was always saying, can I have, please let me have something else. But I wish I would have asked her favorite color. What was her, because she used to can vegetables and do preserves. I want to know about that process and how it was learned, right? So they talk about whose voices are heard, or what meaning can we make from their perspectives. Stiers also says that language is never neutral, right? It can teach us, inform us, entertain us. It can persuade us. It can manipulate us. It can misguide and redirect truths, right? They talk about how telling stories telling stories that stand in complication or contradiction of the dominant narrative can allow people to find solidarity with each other, to reveal alternative perspectives, initiate paradigm shifts, lead to change. Last counter stories Bhattacharya says that they're a frozen frame of collective moments. Frozen frame of collective moments. One of the studies I want to do, and maybe at some point when I get it approved, I'll come back to you, because it's a replication study of a social capital within a choir. And these are people who were singers, and they were singing in a group because they wanted community. And what they did is the methodology was to bring out old records and old concert programs and old photos, and they would go, so what's happening? And they would go, oh my Lord. And they would tell all these stories about the moment. And I think, what would that be like to talk about the moment musically? that first time where you went to a dance, what was on the radio, right? Like what happens when we share these kinds of stories? Do we see counter moments that may not be accounted in our curriculums? I'm going to end by saying one more thing, one more story, or one more old design and then a new pattern, right? The old design is moving with what we would call having students to be heard, listening to them, and the difference between the new pattern developing as students being the leaders of their own experience. This is where I would have showed this, but because of time, I'm just going to. I thought I was going to end it in 2 minutes. Okay, so let me show you this because this may help you with your grandkids too. Yep. So I'll just talk a little bit and then that often when we talk about students here, even at the university, student voice, their perspectives, what I mean by student voice, often stops with students being heard, right? We create spaces for students across our music programs to share their versions of the college experience through surveys. You probably have done that too here in the Renaissance Society where you get surveys, feedback sessions, tell us what you're thinking, student advisory groups. And while these mechanisms are important for gathering information, maybe my big head should get out of the way. Yeah, they are great for gathering information. They also fall short of being beyond or making students feel like they have a voice when at the end of the day, we still as adults do what we think is best for them. So what I love about this, this model, and I use this in my work with students to capture a diversity of perspectives, where on this side, right, when we talk about students being heard, even in your own organization, we talk about expressions or talk about consultations where they may volunteer their opinions. Tell me what you think about this. Or they may have some way of praising or celebrating, even complaining, right? Because we learn a lot from complaint. So that's just an expression. Again, this is part of being heard. But we also use them as consultants. We say, you know, we ask students about their opinion or to provide their feedback or to serve in a focus groups or complete a survey. How many surveys can we complete, right? Again, these are ways for students to articulate their perspectives. They are ways where we can use them for data sources. But on this side of the diagram, nothing changes. I mean, the system itself stays the same. We go, would you fill this out, blah, 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 blah. And then next year we do the same things because the models, the template's already created. We just got to fill it in, right? But what happens when we move students from just being heard to being leaders of their own experience? That's scary. And the older I get, the more scary it becomes because now I realize my niece and my nephew have totally different ways. I don't know where they get this kind of stuff from thinking. And I go, oh my gosh, I'm kind of, you know, having more sympathy for my mom who had to deal with that with me. Where we look at partnerships, right? That faculty and staff are trained in how to work collaboratively with student partners, not just tell them what to do, that we become partners in this work together, or allowing them to co-plan, making decisions and accepting responsibility for the outcomes because we're going to take a risk together. What does that mean to take risks together? What does it mean musically? Sassy, right? What does it mean that we're going to create a whole saxophone ensemble within Renaissance or a Renaissance choir? Call me, I'll do it. I love that. I'm serious. Put a nice tuxedo on that would be perfect. I love it. Right? But what does that mean? The sharing across generations, right? Many of you go to like a Pops concert, right? Like that idea that we could create something different, something new. Maybe we do new music that you create. I mean, we do a lot of recreating, right? But what if we created our own songs? And we had little small groups where you played and I'm the singer, I'm a drummer back in there, I'm really rusty, right? Right, but wow, what would that look like that we become leaders of the experience together? To me, it feels imaginative. It feels exciting. It feels new. It feels under there, I'm going to point to the word fresh. What would that mean? And so I use this model because I think there's something here that I'm realizing from my 20 years in the profession, I just didn't do. I just said, I'm the person with the degree. Oh, you just don't know, young child. Wait till you get to be, and and then I realized, wow, was I doing to them what someone did to me? I'm guilty, right? So I'm gonna stop because I know the time is going to the end, and I'm just gonna end. What can I end on saying? Oh, this is all just too much. Yeah. No, 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 no. You got to know how to stop when you're good. That's a good black preacher right there. That's how to stop when you're on top. Yeah. But I'll share with you. I'm done with that. I'm going to share with you 4 design principles. And this isn't exciting, but I feel like in some ways it is. That one of the things that we were doing was trying to create fluid musicians, flexible musicians, that we were trained for me to be a choir director. But when I went into the classroom, guess what I was doing? Piano and voice and choir and reading comprehension, right? So how do you train people to be flexible, be fluid, to actually do more than one thing? Number 2, innovative practitioners, the practicing of it. What does it mean to be innovative? Just now, we created a wonderful inclusion for next year, the Renaissance Society Choir. But not only do they recreate, we do some big Brahms thing together, like, wow, but we also recreate something new that we've designed. See how different that is as an innovation, right? Number 3, inquisitive thinkers, because to get the right answer, you got to ask the right question, right? And then lastly, community leaders. What does it mean that then we go out and take this kind of idea to our churches, to our synagogues, to our fraternal organizations, to our whatever organization you're in, back to your house and tell your spouse, listen, honey, we're going dancing tonight. Uh-oh. That won't happen. Okay. It felt good to say it, though. We're going dancing. But this is, excuse me, I'm done. And so let me just say thank you, because I feel like my voice is going, this is it, for allowing me to just talk about this, because I do believe I'm excited to see what can be created when we begin to see this connective thread of experience run across what we do. So thank you. Anybody else? There we go. A few little questions, and I'll do my best to try to
Do
answer
you
them.
still jam and play drums somewhere with a group?
Well, I don't play as much. I do play piano. Tomorrow at our church, Dr. James Abington, who's coming all the way from Atlanta at Emory University, is doing a hymn workshop at our church. I'm very excited about that from 9, I think it's from 9 to 12:45. So if you want to come over tomorrow at 9, come over. We can sing some tomorrow as well. Yeah, well, I don't play drums, but I play piano. No, piano. But I was using that as an example. Oh, yeah,
Okay. I just want to say, no music, no life.
Yeah. Yeah.
While I'm walking down, I just want to say something that, oh, sorry, I've got a question down here. We'll come back to. I was just thinking about how so much of what you said applies to other fields.
Oh, yeah.
Besides music.
I think so.
Some of you have heard, I hear this concept that, people say, oh, I can't draw. I'm not a good artist, but no 5-year-old ever thinks that they
Yeah.
can't draw. So I just wonder your thoughts about applying that to music.
Yeah,
Oh, I
yeah.
can't sing.
Yeah.
But yet, children sing on the playground just spontaneously. So should we be singing, but yet there's skill involved. So I just want to comment on that.
So I'll say this very briefly, that Sir Ken Robinson, have you ever seen his TED Talk? It's amazing. It makes me cry every time I see it. But when I started in music, we used to talk about it as a skill, that you were sort of, I guess, birthed and you're like, oh my gosh, this child is born with the gift to sing, right? And what we have done over time is to take away that kind of language as if only a select few people can do it, to talk about how singing is really a gift of God and that everybody can do it, even if we don't all do it the same. That we all are artists, we all are composers, we all can do that. And children demonstrate, right? That they just so naturally are like unafraid, they're risk takers, they get up and they just sing. And somehow over time, we've been taught that we aren't, right? Like so that person, she's a dancer. So if she's a dancer, then that must mean I'm not. And I think we've done ourselves a disservice. If you get a chance, go listen to Sir Ken Robinson's TED Talk about how schools kill creativity. It is so amazingly wonderful in that same regard that everybody, so I try to teach everybody, let's just sing. Let's do this together, even if you don't feel as though you are, in societal's terms, an artist. Yeah.
I have just two things. The first thing is I learned at a young age that there's power in music.
Yeah.
Music can change an atmosphere. A lot of times in some of the classes that I teach at Center of Praise, I would start I used to come to class and they would be just dead and dry. But I noticed that when I start with a good song, people come in and their whole atmosphere is just changed. So there is power in music. I learned that.
Yeah.
But my second question was, what is the name of that book going to be? And when you said it's coming out?
So this one is a music book with colleagues, Chris Kayari and Rika Rajan. It's called If Colors Could Be Heard. Unfortunately, right now, it's like $124. We had nothing to do with that. But hopefully, I'm hoping that the paperback will come out and it'll be much more reasonable. But it drops in October. But if you look it up, it's already like on Amazon and it's on, you can go to the University of Chicago Press and see it there as well. So I'm very, very excited about it because it's just been so long. Wow.
Library?
It better. Yes, it better be. So I'm very excited about that. I also have another contract that I haven't even announced yet that really is a religious text. But I just want to say eventually we'll be talking about complicity and how the church can be complicit to the very injustices that it claims to be working to help solve. Because in our own institutions, we see there's still racism or there's still sexism or there's still homophobia and there's all these things. And so very excited about that. Jamar Boyd and I wrote an article for Duke University that we said, this would be a great idea. Let's pitch this for fun. And then Routledge Press picked it up and we're going, oh, I just don't have a summer, right? But yeah, so I'm very excited because what I like about the music book is that we see music making happening with teachers across the United States who are just doing some really incredible things in their classrooms and drawing on their own histories as ways to teach people and understand music. So, yes.
Yeah, I was very lucky in my K-6 experience of having music all of the time. We had music teachers and art teachers, and I've been very concerned with the priority thing you're talking about, priorities. It seemed to me that in K6 at least, or K8, music that used to be more common is under, we have under-resourced. Do you have any comments on that? Because I think students are just missing so much if they don't get it. I used to supervise student teachers and I only had one who had ever taken music methods course. And what she did with the students in one semester in a 4th grade class was absolutely unbelievable. And I never saw it in any of the other classes. So music is just, we need more of it.
Yeah. Amen. I don't have much to add other than I do know that the pendulum always swings back and forth. I don't see the arts as separate from, I said this at the very beginning, my very sentence, from intellectual and artistic curiosity. I see when we talk about STEM, for example, science and technology and mathematics, those kind of things. But I think the arts are part of that. And I think they can dovetail each other. So I guess it depends on who we vote for and put in our offices too, at the local level, about what then comes down with our school systems and what kids can have. But I don't have kids, I just have 2 dogs, but they are in music.
This is based off of what was just said, that I had a music coach who used to say to folks, there's no such thing as tone deaf. She'd say there's just tone placement. Learn where to place it and you're not tone deaf. And I always found that to be interesting. She would be working with folks who felt they couldn't sing.
Yeah.
and got them after a year or two to be able to sing. So
Yeah, I do think that with anything, you know, the number of hours you put into it, the better you get, right? So I think that there are people who may move from being the music stand holder to actually being really true participants of our ensembles. But yeah.
So there's a particular technique that I've used to try to organize people around a cause, which is called a zipper song. And it's a very easy thing. People think, oh, I can't write a song, but they can think of a word.
Yeah.
So if you say to people, what are the things in your life that are beyond money value? Dignity, community, family, just throw them out. Everybody throw out a word.
Yeah.
And now we're going to write a song. What's my dignity worth? You can't buy it. And that way you create the organization that gives them a mission for going forward, but you empower each one of them to sing their own song because they wrote it in that moment.
Yeah. And I'll just give one last little methodological thing that my advisor, Maud Hickey, has in her book about composition. And I thought it was just powerful. She says that the worst thing you can do, I'm paraphrasing, when you're asking students to create something is to tell them just to go do it. That's true for us, right? It's because you go, I don't know where to start. I just feel like, you know, so then you feel the weight of it. But if you say you need to have 3 measures and you're going to use 4 notes, then people in the restrictions learn to be creative, right? And I think that's one of those kind of ideas that you said that you remind me of, is that if you could say you got to create one word, from that one word you do this, and then you do that, people go, okay, I can do this, right? If you go, just go create a song, you're going, right.
Okay. Well, this was fabulous. Thank you. Thank you. So from one who's really, truly tone deaf, you know, you're giving me hope.
Oh, no, you can do it.